I'm the EST of NXT, the strongest, the fastest, the toughest, the roughest, the quickest, the greatest, the best.
Bianca Belair is one of WWE's most prominent stars in recent years.
Very athletic, look at this strength. Standing vertical suplex following the squats.
Often positioned as a top-tier talent and a key face of the women's division.
Oh my God!
However, like any long-term performer in the company, not every moment has been perfect. And today, we're taking a closer look at the moments WWE doesn't like to talk about when it comes to the EST of WWE. Bianca Belair's rise in WWE began in 2020, as she quickly stood out due to her athleticism, natural charisma, and her signature long braid. By early 2021, it was clear that WWE was positioning her for a major breakthrough. That moment arrived at the Royal Rumble 2021, where she entered the match as one of the favorites to win. When the final two competitors were revealed, Belair and Rhea Ripley, her victory felt like the natural culmination of her rapid ascent. However, shortly after the match, her win came under unexpected scrutiny. A screenshot began circulating online that appeared to show both of Belair's feet touching the floor at the same time during the final moments of the match. For longtime viewers of the Royal Rumble, this detail is significant, as the rules state that if both feet hit the floor simultaneously, the superstar is considered eliminated.
Oh, look at the feet, look at the feet! Remember, both feet have to touch!
The moment occurred after Charlotte Flair had already been eliminated, leaving only Belair and Ripley hanging over the ropes. Some fans noted that the angle of the footage suggested Belair may have actually touched down fully, which would have meant she should have been eliminated. Despite the discussion online, the match continued as planned, and Belair was officially declared the winner. WWE did not address the moment on commentary, and the incident was quietly overlooked, allowing her victory to serve as the launchpad for the next stage of her career. But what often gets overlooked is how different Bianca Belair's presentation was when she first entered the industry. Long before her main roster success, her character in NXT leaned far more into arrogance than admiration. Belair signed with WWE in 2016. Coming from a collegiate track background and later establishing herself in CrossFit, she has since credited Mark Henry for helping her get noticed and opening the door to WWE. From there, she was quickly integrated into NXT, where audiences first got a glimpse of her potential during the Mae Young Classic. While she showed promise, her early run ended in the second round against eventual winner Kairi Sane. What followed was a steady developmental run that doesn't always get talked about today.
Very athletic, look at this strength. Standing vertical suplex following the squats.
Belair built momentum through an undefeated streak storyline and eventually challenged for the NXT Women's Championship, proving her credibility before ever reaching the main roster. However, unlike her later run on Raw and SmackDown, this version of Bianca Belair wasn't positioned as a clear fan favorite. Her EST gimmick at the time came across as cocky, something many newer fans may not be aware of. At the same time, her presentation was already beginning to set her apart. Beyond her strength and athleticism, it was her signature braid that became a defining feature. Belair began incorporating the braid into her offense, most notably whipping it across opponents with enough force to leave visible damage. One of the earliest and most talked about instances came against Shayna Baszler, where the impact left a mark that reportedly took weeks to heal.
This is where Baszler... When in doubt!
That same element carried over into bigger stages. During her WrestleMania 37 match against Sasha Banks, the sound of the braid striking was so loud that some viewers questioned whether it had been enhanced.
Oh my God! How is Banks even functioning?
She later used it again during her feud with Becky Lynch, further establishing it as a regular part of her matches. Behind the scenes, the idea to use the braid as a weapon wasn't accidental. Belair revealed that it was suggested by NXT coach Sarah Amato, who encouraged her to give every part of her presentation a purpose. There has also been ongoing curiosity surrounding the braid itself. Belair has suggested in interviews that the length largely comes from her real hair, although the exact nature of it has never been fully clarified, something that has only added to the intrigue around her presentation. In an interview with the Miami Herald, Belair explained, "I've never actually measured the hair, but it's almost to the floor. It's between my ankle and my knee, so somewhere mid-calf. Preparing the hair for every match is a task. I'm not even going to lie about that." While Belair implies that the hair is hers, there have also been Instagram posts now and again showing the WWE superstar with much shorter hair, The hair could be hers, but also maybe an extension as well. In modern wrestling, however, where kayfabe is dead, it's nice to have a little mystery about a wrestler's gimmick. Real, attached hair or not, the braid gives Belair a great look and a weapon the likes of which most fans had never seen before. By the time she reached the main roster, her combination of athleticism, charisma, and signature presentation had firmly established her as one of WWE's top female talents. This momentum carried into SummerSlam 2021, where Belair faced her first significant challenge as a reigning champion. Belair was originally scheduled to defend the SmackDown Women's Championship against Sasha Banks, a highly anticipated matchup following their storied rivalry and the acclaim of WrestleMania 37. However, in a last-minute twist, Banks was replaced by Becky Lynch, marking Lynch's surprise return to WWE. The sudden change altered the dynamics of the match, and despite Belair's status as champion, the contest concluded in only 26 seconds, with Lynch immediately securing the victory and ending Belair's reign. While Lynch's return generated a massive reaction from the live audience, the decision to have Belair lose the championship in such a short match immediately sparked criticism among fans. Many argued that the outcome undermined Belair's credibility as champion and made her appear vulnerable in a way that contrasted sharply with her established character.
Bianca Belair is stunned.
Although Belair later regained momentum and eventually reclaimed the championship, the SummerSlam loss remains one of the most controversial booking decisions of her career. Beyond storyline setbacks, she has also had to deal with moments of real-life embarrassment that WWE would rather not talk about. One of the most talked about instances occurred during the 2024 Queen of the Ring tournament in Saudi Arabia, when Belair accidentally urinated in the ring after taking a finishing move from Nia Jax. Belair later addressed the incident during an appearance on Hot Ones alongside Jade Cargill. During a "Never Have I Ever" segment, she openly admitted the moment and even connected it to a change in her in-ring style, stating,
"There's a reason why I don't do leg drops anymore." Yeah. You know when it happened? It just happened recently. Queen of the Ring tournament.
Yeah.
Nia Jax.
For Belair, it became one of those rare behind-the-scenes moments that fans became aware of, but one that exists almost entirely outside of WWE's carefully managed narrative. At the same time, it also came during a period where her on-screen run was beginning to face a different kind of scrutiny. Despite her consistency in the ring and her growing list of accomplishments, Bianca Belair's position at the top of the division hasn't always been universally embraced. For long stretches, Belair was presented as a near-invincible figure. She routinely overcame top-tier opponents, often in decisive fashion, and was rarely shown to be vulnerable in a meaningful way. While that kind of booking is typically reserved for establishing a long-term star, it also carries a risk. Over time, it can begin to feel predictable. This is where comparisons to John Cena started to emerge. During his peak years, Cena was similarly portrayed as an unstoppable babyface, which led to a divide in audience reactions. A portion of the fan base supported him, while another grew increasingly frustrated with the lack of balance in his portrayal. A similar pattern began to develop with Belair. Belair was seen by a portion of the audience as being heavily protected, positioned in a way that made it difficult for others in the division to feel like credible threats. The term Super Cena, which once defined that era, started to appear in discussions around her run as well. While these comparisons didn't represent the entire audience, they were significant enough to reflect a divide in perception. And in some ways, that approach also carried over into how certain milestones in Bianca Belair's career were handled. In WWE, a WrestleMania record is rarely treated as a minor detail. Performances on that stage are often used to define a superstar's legacy, and sustained success there can quietly elevate someone into a different tier altogether. A consistent winning record, especially across multiple years, is usually framed as a sign of reliability, star power, and long-term importance to the company. Bianca Belair had built exactly that, even if it wasn't always heavily emphasized on screen. It started at WrestleMania 37, where she defeated Sasha Banks in a historic main event. That match wasn't just a milestone moment, it positioned Belair as someone WWE could trust in a headline role on its biggest stage. She followed that with a decisive win at WrestleMania 38, defeating Becky Lynch to win the Raw Women's Championship. Beyond the title change, the match also served as a form of redemption after her abrupt SummerSlam loss, restoring her credibility in a very deliberate way. At WrestleMania 39, Belair continued that consistency by defeating Asuka, reinforcing the idea that she could not only reach the top, but stay there. Even at WrestleMania 40, although she was placed in a tag team setting, Belair remained on the winning side, teaming with Jade Cargill and Naomi to defeat Damage Control. By that point, her WrestleMania record stood at 4-0. It wasn't being framed as a streak in the traditional sense, but it was undeniably there, a pattern of success on the biggest stage that could have easily been turned into a defining narrative. That changed in 2025 at WrestleMania 41, where Bianca competed in a massive triple threat match against Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. The match resulted in a loss for Belair, bringing her WrestleMania record to 4-1 and ending what had been a strong run of performances on WWE's biggest stage. Under normal circumstances, a loss like that, especially after multiple consecutive victories, would carry significant narrative weight. WWE has historically used moments like these to either create a setback storyline, redefine a character, or elevate the opponent who broke the streak. In Belair's case, however, the aftermath felt relatively subdued. The loss was acknowledged, but it wasn't positioned as a major turning point in her career. Apart from her WrestleMania streak coming to an end, Bianca Belair also faced a far more serious setback, one that took her completely out of in-ring competition. The injury occurred during her triple threat match when Ripley accidentally landed on Belair's hand during a top rope sequence. At the time, it was initially described as a broken finger, something that, in wrestling terms, is usually considered manageable. Early expectations, even from Belair herself, suggested a relatively short recovery window of a few weeks.
My fingers hurt, my feelings hurt. Nah, I'm just playing. Yeah, I walked to the WrestleMania with a couple of broken fingers, but it was all worth it.
However, that assumption quickly proved to be inaccurate. What appeared to be a minor injury turned out to be significantly more complex. Belair later revealed that the damage wasn't just a simple break. Her finger had been fractured in multiple places, along with severe damage to the knuckle joint. The impact had effectively crushed the structure of her finger, making basic movement difficult. The biggest complication came during recovery. Even after the bones healed, the finger remained locked in a straight position, unable to bend. For a professional wrestler, that kind of limitation isn't just inconvenient, it makes performing safely nearly impossible. Any impact risked re-injury. As weeks turned into months, fan perception began to shift. Initially, many assumed it was just a routine injury, but as her absence extended far beyond the expected timeline, speculation started to grow. Some fans questioned how a finger injury could sideline a top athlete for so long. Others went further, creating their own explanations, including widespread rumors that Belair might be pregnant, especially after she missed major appearances like the Royal Rumble. In reality, the situation was far more serious than it appeared. After nearly 10 months of unsuccessful recovery and rehabilitation, Belair eventually underwent surgery in early 2026 to correct the damage, essentially having to re-break and repair the joint to restore proper movement. Even post-surgery, the recovery process has been slow and physically demanding. She has spoken about the difficulty of regaining mobility, noting that the finger often stiffens again after therapy, making progress feel inconsistent. The entire situation highlights how misleading initial reports around injuries can be, especially in wrestling. What was once dismissed as a minor issue turned into a long-term absence that not only impacted her momentum, but also led to unnecessary speculation about her personal life. Another aspect of Bianca Belair's career that doesn't get discussed as often is the lack of long-term rivalries, despite her position at the top of the division. For a performer who has been consistently pushed as a central figure, Belair's feuds have often felt relatively short-lived. While she has shared the ring with major names like Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, and Asuka, many of those programs were either brief or resolved without extended follow-up. This is notable because, historically, WWE has relied on long-term rivalries to define its biggest stars. Feuds that develop over time, through multiple matches, evolving character dynamics, and personal stakes, tend to leave a lasting impact. In Belair's case, while the matches themselves have often delivered, The rivalries haven't always been given the same level of narrative depth. Even her program with Becky Lynch, which had the potential to become a defining, long-running feud, was ultimately structured around key moments rather than a sustained, evolving storyline. Similarly, her interactions with other top stars have often felt more like transitional programs than deeply developed rivalries. As a result, there's a sense that several potential career-defining feuds never fully reached their ceiling. The foundation was there: credible opponents, strong in-ring performances, and clear stakes, but the follow-through wasn't always consistent. In the long run, this has created an interesting gap in her career. Bianca Belair has the accomplishments, the presence, and the credibility of a top star, but compared to others in similar positions, she has fewer prolonged rivalries that audiences can point to as defining chapters of her journey. Just before her injury, Bianca Belair found herself in a noticeably different position compared to her earlier run as a dominant singles competitor. The landscape of the women's division shifted significantly with the arrival of Jade Cargill, who joined WWE after a highly publicized run in AEW, where she had been presented as an undefeated and dominant champion. Her signing immediately created expectations that she would be fast-tracked into a major role. Interestingly, Bianca Belair herself had expressed interest in working alongside Cargill, suggesting the idea of forming a tag team.
While I've had a lot of amazing women fight alongside me, and Jade is the perfect person to help me do that.
On paper, it made sense. Pairing an established top star with a high-profile newcomer could have helped ease Cargill into WWE, while also giving Belair something different to do outside of the singles title picture. WWE eventually moved in that direction, aligning the two and positioning them as a dominant team. However, the execution did not fully match the initial potential. While they did find success, including capturing the Women's Tag Team Championships, the run lacked the consistency and long-term direction typically associated with top-tier acts. Momentum was often interrupted, and their matches and segments did not always feel like a central focus of the division. At the same time, the partnership had unintended consequences for Belair's positioning. Instead of remaining a constant presence in the main event scene, she gradually shifted away from major singles feuds. During a period where other top names were involved in high-profile rivalries, Belair's role felt comparatively limited. This created the perception that she was, to some extent, being held in place, contributing to the development of a newer star, but without advancing her own trajectory in a meaningful way. For a performer who had previously been established as one of the division's most dominant figures, the shift was noticeable. And while the pairing had clear upside, it also highlighted how easily momentum can stall when a top star is moved away from the core title picture without a clearly defined long-term direction. Another moment that drew attention outside the ring came from Bianca Belair's comments regarding WWE's events in Saudi Arabia. During media appearances tied to WrestleMania 43, Belair spoke positively about her experiences performing in the country, describing them as amazing while highlighting the hospitality, the crowd reactions, and what she viewed as the growth of women's wrestling in the region. She emphasized that WWE's shows in Saudi Arabia had created opportunities for female performers to make history, pointing to increased representation both inside and outside the ring. Belair also referenced specific experiences, including all-women's matches and the visible support from live audiences, framing these moments as meaningful not just for women and girls, but for broader cultural visibility. In her view, WWE's presence in Saudi Arabia reflected a larger global expansion, with events like WrestleMania being hosted there, seen as a sign of the company's international reach. However, the response to these comments was far from unanimous. Some fans took issue with the positive framing, arguing that it overlooked ongoing concerns about human rights and women's freedoms in Saudi Arabia. As clips of her remarks circulated on social media, the reaction intensified, with debates focusing less on Belair as an individual and more on WWE's broader relationship with the country. Taken together, these moments point toward a larger pattern in how WWE has presented Bianca Belair throughout her career. From overlooked in-ring controversies to booking decisions, real-life incidents, audience reactions, and even external criticism, there have been multiple instances where the full picture hasn't been fully acknowledged on screen. Instead, WWE has consistently chosen to maintain a very specific portrayal of Belair, one built around dominance, confidence, and near perfection. That approach isn't unusual. WWE has historically protected the image of its top stars, ensuring that certain moments don't disrupt the narrative they are trying to build. In Belair's case, that has meant downplaying or moving past anything that doesn't align with her presentation as the EST. Interestingly, that persona itself wasn't something artificially imposed. It developed quite organically. Speaking on the Casual podcast, Bianca Belair explained how the idea came together during her early days in WWE, following guidance from Mark Henry. Reflecting on that conversation,
like when I saw Bianca Belair,
she did a damn backflip on her way to doing another.
Belair recalled being encouraged to create a character that audiences could immediately understand and connect with. As she evaluated her own strengths, the concept began to take shape naturally. She explained, "I feel like I'm the best. I'm the strongest. I'm the fastest. I'm the roughest. I'm the toughest. I'm the quickest. I'm the greatest." And I realized all those things ended in EST, and that's the way that I could simplify it. That idea would go on to define her entire presentation. From her very first promo, the EST identity was already in place.
I'm the EST of NXT, the strongest, the fastest, the toughest, the roughest, the quickest, the greatest, the best.
Clear, marketable, and easy for audiences to grasp. Over time, it became the foundation of how WWE positioned her, confident, dominant, and consistently one step ahead of her competition. However, that same clarity in presentation has also influenced how her career has been portrayed. Moments that don't align with that image have often been minimized or quickly moved past. The Royal Rumble controversy was never addressed. The SummerSlam loss was corrected without long-term reflection. Real-life incidents were kept off television. Crowd reactions that didn't fully match her positioning were rarely acknowledged. Even significant milestones, like the end of her WrestleMania streak, were not deeply explored. Individually, these moments may not seem particularly significant, but when viewed together, they reveal a noticeable gap between WWE's presentation and the reality of her career. And that isn't a criticism of Belair as a performer. If anything, it highlights her reliability, her ability to maintain her position despite setbacks, controversies, and challenges that might have affected others more significantly. At the same time, it shows that her journey hasn't been as seamless as it is often presented. Behind the accolades and major victories is a career that, like any other in professional wrestling, has involved adjustments, missteps, and moments of unpredictability. In the end, Bianca Belair remains one of WWE's most accomplished and consistent stars of her generation. But when you look beyond the surface, it becomes clear that there is far more to her story than what is typically shown on screen. That being said, let us know your thoughts in the comments section, and before you leave, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Wrestling Rivals so you don't miss the next ones.